Captain Marty, you were there. Can you kind of walk us through that last part there? Where were you at in vicinity to it, and kind of what was your perspective right before you guys called the Mayday and then into the Mayday?
Back up to when they made that last entry. So I talked to Hunter because we were going to back them up online. And that's when we made the decision that he was going to split his crew and put 2 of his guys on the backup line. 2 guys go in. Thought process being that there was no need to expose us if they were just going to go in and then open up the building and leave. And then we would kind of determine what happened as to where we would go from there. So like where the battalion truck, and I don't think it was quite 300 yards away. It was probably 275 or somewhere, wherever that was parked, from the front entrance to the gated facility where you go in. And so that's where we were. It was next to the battalion truck because they took our hand line and ventured into the structure. And then while they were there, and what I hadn't even processed was my engineer comes over, and I'm watching them walk into the hot zone and says, "Hey, I should probably turn the truck back on so they have pump line." I'm like, "Yeah, that'd be a really good idea to make happen right now." So he walks down the access road because our pumper's on the other side. We're on the east side next to the battalion chief. The pumper they're pulling the hand line off of was on the other side, on the east side. So he goes over and he's standing at the pump panel. He gets there and makes sure they have water pressure. So it's me and my other 2 firefighters by the battalion chief truck. And I know when he opened the door, because you could see an increase from what I saw was an increased smoke production, but there was like a light on that side, so the smoke coming up was backlit. You could see it glowing as it came, not glowing, but reflecting light as it came up. So we were standing there watching it, and we had actually took our gear off or took it down because we weren't the backup team, which we didn't have the hand line. They had our hand line, which wasn't the best decision in the world, but that's what we had done in the moment. In the moment, it made sense. Oh yeah, that's the backup team, and come over. So we'd opened our coats and everything, and took SCBAs off, and then I remember when the door opened. Not that much time had gone by, and I started walking over to talk to the battalion chief, who was incident commander. I could hear the radio traffic, and I heard the radio traffic that the temperature, I think inside was 104 degrees or 105 degrees, somewhere in there, inside that facility or inside the building. And so I was walking by the battalion chief up to his window at about the time the explosion happened. And then, so when the explosion happened, it was loud and concussive. It sounded like an artillery round going off. It was very violent explosion, very sudden, violent explosion. And as soon as that happened, at that time, I was just at the door, even with the battalion chief who was sitting in his SUV. And just the sudden explosion, and the battalion safety officer sitting in it is immediately declared a Mayday. And I remember being impressed by how fast he just declared a Mayday. And so he starts declaring a Mayday, and battalion Chief Cheatham says, "Go get him." And so we're on our way, Chief, and we started throwing down on my SCBA with my crews. We went down to down the access road to the front end. And so from the access road, there's a gate that goes in that facility. That had been the edge of the hot zone. So walking there, several thoughts are running through my mind. Like, cool, I had a hot zone that was that fence, but now what's my hot zone? What chemicals do I have? How far dispersed are? How much hydrogen cyanide? We were maxing out their meters before the explosion. Did it all burn up in the explosion? Which I'm sure it probably did, but how much is being produced, and now where's it spreading to? This is kind of what's running through my mind as I'm taking my crew in to go get this other crew. I don't think there was ever a doubt that we were going to go get them, but it was certainly a concern on the back of my mind of how long we're going to stay in the hot zone and the kind of treatments we're going to try and do. Approaching the gate to turn into the facility where the crew had gone into, and right about the time we got there, the first firefighter from the Peoria hazmat team came running from the outside of the facility up to us, holding his face. no gear on, or no coat, no SCBA helmet, hands, no gloves on his face, blood pouring down his arms, telling me his crew's dead, and runs up and comes to us screaming his crew's dead. And so I my new hot zone is back to where my original hot zone is. It's back by the battalion truck. Hey, you can walk, go to the battalion truck. So, because I'm instantly thinking, cool, I have 3 guys here with me going down to try and rescue 4. And this is also a problem that's in my head that you realize suddenly, like, this is going to be a tough rescue. The other thing I'm kind of confronted with is the confusion of, why are you coming from the outside of the facility? You were inside the facility. So at that gate, as I'm walking up, I can look to my right, and there's nobody there. And so I just kept walking in the direction where Tini had come from, and that's where I could see on the ground, the desert's on fire. There's a giant burning bush, and I can see next to the fence, closest to the fence, running kind of right to left, is Lopez. And then a little bit, maybe 20 feet past Lopez is Chula. And then maybe, like they said, 75 feet away, kind of in a fetal position up underneath this burning tree, is Captain Claire. So I go to Claire. My crew goes. Shawn and Clint, my 2 firefighters, go to Lopez. And Shawn, his background is he's a flight medic. Very, very, very good medic. He's been a flight medic for years. I go to Hunter. And as I reach Hunter and they reach Lopez, Chula is the firefighter in between. He gets up and starts staggering, kind of falling left to right, but he can get up and move. And I yell to him to go to the battalion truck because I just reduced my rescue profile by 50%. So I start assessing Hunter. He's in bad shape, real bad shape. Again, he's not wearing any protective, like, all his protective clothing's gone. He's got his bunker gear on, but his SCBA is gone, his helmet's gone, his gloves are gone. At that time, firefighter Colin yells over to me and says, hey, Captain, this guy needs an airway now. He has thermal burns. So I'm a paramedic. I know that you're racing you have seconds, not minutes, to deal with thermal burns, to get a tube. Okay. You guys, Clint and Shawn, you take Lopez. There's 2 of you on one. You get him out. We're going to the battalion truck. Okay. So then I grab Hunter, and I'm dragging Hunter out on the dirt to get back to the access road. And on my back to the access road, I actually trip over Lopez as they stopped in the access road. My 2 firemen did, that I didn't know they did. I'm walking backwards, and so I actually kind of spill over on them. So what had happened was Shawn reached the access road. My engineer that I said was at the fire truck, saw the explosion, saw us going in. So heads up, in his mind, he grabs, I'm going to start setting out the boxes. We didn't have a chance to communicate that's not really where I wanted to do treatment on that access road, but he's running ahead of the game. So I look over at Shawn. We got boxes. Shawn's like, he needs an airway now. So, okay. Then let's do it. We got the boxes here. I don't want to really do it here, but let's do it. And so we start to set up to get an airway there. And Lopez is fighting us. I have to pry Lopez's fingers off of Shawn's mask. He's got Shawn by the mat. These guys they're all concussed, and they're type A personalities. They're firemen. They're not good patients. So all of them fought us through this whole entire, without going into a lot of stories, the entire getting Hunter to the road was a fight. Them getting Lopez out was, so they're fighting this. And that's something you don't train on when you do firefighter rescue Mayday drills, that they're going to fight you tooth and nail because they want to get to their crew. Every one of them was going, I want to get to my crew. And they're wanting to help their crew members out. And they don't know they're confused. They don't know what's happening. But, they have that drive to want to help. We start to unmask to do an airway right there on the access road. And that's when Shawn looks over, because he's facing the building, because he's at Lopez's head. And he says, should I be worried about that? And that's when I turn around and a very large white cloud is now reemerging from that structure and drifting towards us. And I says, yeah, negative. We're not doing the airway here. To make it move faster, I left Clint with Hunter, me, Shawn, and Tim Penner picked up Lopez so we can just do it faster, just get him off the ground, and carried him to the battalion truck. At the time when we got to the battalion truck, I could hear the first engines coming from the Mayday call. And then while I left them with Lopez, I went back and back up with Clint and picked up Hunter Claire. With me and Clint carried Hunter Claire out. And engine 303, either 303 or 302 was the first crew that met us as I got Hunter Claire we're basically in front of the battalion truck. And we're able to put Hunter Claire on a gurney. That was pretty much the extent of my involvement at that point. It kind of became initially too, I was trying to make sure I had a patient count, what crews were with what patients. And it, going into that became a little confusing because crews had split up to go treat guys that were coming in on the response. So I didn't know which crews particularly were treating which guys. And to add a little more to that, Chula and Gutini kept trying to come back into the mix. So at one point we actually had the officers hold them down, but so they weren't necessarily in the treatment area where the other guys were. But eventually they all got treated, packaged up, and transported. And then later after they were all transported, that's when they came and assessed us and transported us to the hospital for potential exposure.
They wound up flying 3 guys out, or was it 2? Yeah, 2 guys. It was Justin Lopez and Captain Claire were flown out, and they had to RSI Justin Lopez to keep his airway open.